This video is brought to you by Cool Green Clothing.
I'm switching lanes so much, man. They can never get behind me, man. Yeah, I'm taking it all away, man. I ain't playing with them, man. One thing is the key, man. It's consistency, man. It don't matter, man, how good the product is, man. If you ain't out there, man, to get rid of it, man, the supply to demand, man, you going down, man. You in it for nothing, man. Get with me, man. I'm starting a whole league, man. Get with me, man. Get with the winning team, man. Cool Green Clothing. We going all the way, and we coming straight out of Baltimore.
What's up, YouTube fam? It's your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 times, and I'm back with another video. In this episode of the Baltimore Way, I'll be discussing the missing persons case of Joanna and Shariece Clark, the mother and daughter who vanished without a trace from their South Baltimore home over 5 years ago. Before we get into this video, please don't forget to subscribe if you're new to our channel. Go ahead and click that notification bell to get notified every time we upload. If you're rocking with the content, smash that like button. Feel free to share this video with everyone you know. Make sure you watch until the end to hear the full story. Alright, let's get right into it. It's been over 5 years since anyone has last seen 15-year-old Shariece Clark and her mother, 33-year-old Joanna Clark. Both disappeared from their South Baltimore home on Saturday, February 4th, 2017. The mother and daughter were last seen at separate times on that day. Shariece didn't show up to Carter G. Woodson Elementary Middle School, where she attended that following Monday or Tuesday. Her mother, Joanna, didn't show up for work at the Goes Candy Company either. Joanna left behind her 6 other young children between the ages of 2 to 10 years old. Her daughter, Shariece, was her oldest. When Joanna didn't show up for work on that Tuesday, her aunt who worked with her called around to see if anyone had heard from her or seen her. The aunt then got in touch with Joanna's best friend, Jessica Watson, to find out if she heard from Joanna. But her friend had not talked to her since the night of February 4th. According to Joanna's best friend on the Vanish podcast in 2017, Joanna's ex-boyfriend, Dennis Queen's oldest son, was watching Joanna's younger children when she went to do a wellness check on Joanna at her home on Tuesday, February 7th, 2017. Joanna's ex Dennis was not at the residence at the time, according to Joanna's best friend. This is also the time when Joanna's best friend realizes that Shariece was also missing after asking Dennis's oldest son had he seen her. Joanna's friend went up to Sharice's school and found out that Shariece had not shown up in the past 2 days. Joanna's best friend once again called the family and confirmed that no one had heard from them. According to news reports, this is the day that Joanna's best friend reported Joanna and Shariece Clark missing. Here is a timeline of events leading up to the disappearance of Shariece and her mom, Joanna, as reported by various news sites via webslots.com. At an unknown time on February 4th, 2017, Joanna Clark goes on a date with her new boyfriend. Shariece watches her siblings at the home she lives at with her mother. On the same day, at 2:23 p.m., Shariece posted her last public post on Facebook. At 3 p.m., Joanna's ex, Dennis Queen, comes over. Shariece leaves the home. According to BPD, Sharice's last known communication was at 2:30 p.m., February 4th, 2017, while she was still at home watching her siblings. She was last seen at her home between 2:30 and 3 p.m. That evening at around 6:30 p.m., Sharice's phone pinged last in downtown Baltimore. However, none of Sharice's friends reported seeing her. That same night at 9 p.m., Joanna and her date arrived at the bus stop on Philadelphia Road in Baltimore County to return home, according to Joanna's best friend on the Vanish podcast. About an hour later, at around 10:02 p.m., according to Joanna's best friend, she received a call from Joanna while she was on her way home from her date. Joanna asked her friend for a ride from the bus stop because the bus was an hour late. She calls her friend back and tells her she's getting on the bus. Her friend hears her getting on the bus and promised her friend that she will call her when she gets home, but Joanna did not call. Numerous news sources revealed that it was between 11 p.m. and 11:15 p.m. when Joanna was last seen at her home. According to Vanish, Joanna Clark's cell phone last pinged at her home in Cherry Hill around 11:15 p.m. According to Vanish, the ex-boyfriend Dennis revealed that he was still at the apartment and heard someone come into the apartment. Some reports revealed that he was asleep on the living room floor with the children when he heard someone come in. According to what he told a journalist, he also heard someone leave back out the house that night, and neither did Shariece or Joanna return home since then. According to news reports, Joanna had a long, tumultuous relationship with her 6 younger children's father, Dennis Queen. They were together for 13 years off and on, and he had been a part of her daughter Sharice's life since she was 2 years old. The couple was far from a happy family, according to family members, but Joanna did everything she could for them. While Joanna was the sole provider, a reliable and hard worker, it was reported that Dennis was unable to find longevity in the workforce and was frequently without employment. According to reports, Joanna's loved ones said Dennis had also been abusing and stalking her for years. Reports also revealed that Shariece deeply disliked Dennis and never wanted to be home when he was present at the house. Despite the fact that he was in her life since she was a toddler, it was reported that Dennis treated Shariece differently than the other children and had also allegedly abused her physically. According to reports, Joanna had repeatedly tried to leave Dennis. Joanna had recently gotten a restraining order against Dennis in September of 2016, which was still active in February of 2017. In that protective order, it was said that after getting into an argument, Dennis threatened to blow Joanna's brains out and threatened to kill her. Joanna and Dennis were actually due back in court for an extension to be granted on the protective order on February 8, 2017, 4 days after Joanna and Shariece had gone missing. So what were the events leading up to the disappearance of Joanna and Shariece? Well, we know that they were both last seen at separate times by the same person, Dennis Queen. According to reports, prior to Shariece and Joanna's disappearance, there were allegations that Dennis had made inappropriate advances to Shariece, and she told her mom. The reports continued to say that a week before Shariece and Joanna went missing, Shariece was sleeping in her mother's room instead of her own. Because of what Shariece told her mom Dennis did, Joanna reportedly told him he had to leave. She told him she would put all of his belongings out on the street by February 4th, which was the same day the mother and daughter disappeared. Joanna's brother told journalists that he and his sister's best friend were asked by Joanna for support in making sure that Dennis left the residence with all of his belongings that weekend, but that never happened. I know many may be asking, why was Dennis back at the house when a restraining order was in place? Well, according to reports, Joanna had let Dennis back in the home to assist her with childcare. Joanna's oldest daughter, Shariece, had to miss days of school to help her mother with watching her younger siblings while she worked. Shariece was like a second mother to her siblings and helped out where she could. It was just unlike Joanna and Shariece to just abruptly leave and not say anything to anyone. They were pretty active on social media, especially 15-year-old Shariece. Her last post was posted just minutes before she was last seen. It was also reported that $800 Joanna was saving to pay rent was missing after the disappearance. But family and friends don't believe the notion that Joanna would just run off with Shariece and take that money to start over. They affirm that Joanna would have never left her 6 younger children behind, especially since she was the children's sole provider. Joanna's best friend also told the Vanish podcast back in 2017 that Joanna was expecting to receive a pretty hefty tax refund check, upwards of $9,000. So she said that she doesn't believe her friend would have left without that either. As months went by, there was no activity from Joanna's financial accounts. Joanna and Shariece literally just stopped all communication with everyone. Stopped going to work, stopped going to school. None of Sharice's friends or acquaintances had heard from her or seen her. Shariece wasn't known to be a runaway or anything like that. When the police first spoke to the press about the investigation into finding Shariece and Joanna, from the beginning they said they suspected foul play. The circumstances surrounding Joanna and Sharice's disappearance led them to transfer the case over to homicide early on. Detectives received a few tips and performed a couple searches, but their efforts had not led them to naming a suspect or a person of interest. Although Dennis Queen was reportedly the last person to see both ladies alive, he did not alert family or authorities that he had not seen Joanna or Shariece since that Saturday, February 4th, 2017. 3 days had already passed by the time Joanna's best friend had reported Joanna and Shariece missing. According to Joanna's best friend, Dennis had not assisted her or the family in the search for Joanna and Shariece. Joanna and Sharice's family have their suspicions set around Dennis Queen. Although interviewed by police several times after the disappearance, Dennis has never been named a suspect or a person of interest. He maintains his innocence, that he had nothing to do with what may have happened to Joanna and Shariece. Sadly, in the beginning of all this, Joanna and Dennis's 6 young children were put into foster care because Dennis was not supposed to be in the home due to the protective order. They had to be placed separately for a while, but eventually the state began to work with Dennis to get his children back into his custody. Joanna's mother, who lived out of state, would travel back and forth to Baltimore to attend the hearings in an attempt to also get custody of the children. Joanna's family and friends were concerned that Dennis was going to get custody of his children after the suspicious circumstances surrounding Joanna and Sharice's disappearance. But because Dennis was not named a suspect or a person of interest, there was nothing they could really do. He was never charged with any crime. The protective order that was placed against him was extended on February 8, 2017. However, when Joanna didn't show up for future proceedings, the case was thrown out on March 1, 2017. According to sources, Dennis was eventually granted custody of his children after a lengthy custody battle. Despite the lack of media coverage and the lack of resources being used by law enforcement to try to bring Joanna and Shariece home, Joanna and Sharice's loved ones have not given up the fight and getting justice for them. To this day, Joanna's mother, Miss Margaret Tucker, still actively posts on the social media pages she dedicates to help finding and bringing awareness to her daughter and granddaughter's disappearance. Family and loved ones held a vigil on the 5th-year anniversary this past February since Joanna and Shariece went missing. The family have even made memorials in their honor. Emotions are still running high in this case, which is completely understandable. There are so many complexities in this situation. A lot of rumors and hearsay floating around. With tons of circumstantial evidence, it may seem like an open and shut case. However, detectives say that because of a lack of evidence, they don't have any leads. I read one report that said police gave Dennis's brother a lie detector test and the results came back inconclusive. It was reported that Dennis's brother had recently purchased a car right before Joanna and Shariece went missing, but sold it soon after. According to reports, the muffler on that car had fallen off not too long after Dennis's brother purchased it. Some thought that was suspicious, according to sources. The investigation also revealed that Dennis was also asked to take a lie detector test, but he refused. As I was researching for this story, I watched an interview that Dennis did with an investigative journalist here on YouTube a few years ago, and it was quite interesting. At first, he declined to be interviewed, but then said he would do it if he didn't have to show his face. His mother and brother were present. As the journalist began to ask him compelling questions, in my opinion, he came off a bit defensive, and he stopped the interview abruptly and walked away. But soon after, he came back and agreed to the interview, but this time he was willing to show his face. His answers to certain questions kinda changed, especially the questions about the timeline of when he last saw Shariece and Joanna. He adamantly denied any involvement. He also said the accusations in the protective order against him were false and that he and Joanna did not have any kind of problems. Some reports said he told police he was drunk and passed out on the living room floor and doesn't remember anything after the time Joanna would have arrived home that fateful night of February 4th. I have my opinions, but since no one has been charged yet, I have to reiterate it's just an opinion and not fact. I believe Dennis knows more than what he is professing to. I don't know if he's responsible for what happened, but the circumstances revolving around his possible involvement is very suspicious and very eerie. He also did not alert family or authorities when he did not see Joanna and Shariece in 3 days. It was also reported that Dennis was not supposed to be staying there that night. He was supposed to get his belongings out and leave the residence on February 4th, the day Joanna told him to leave. To be fair, despite these circumstances, he was able to regain custody of his children, so obviously the court deemed him capable and stable enough to be the primary custodian of his children. Many have also questioned if the children knew anything, but their interviews didn't point to any leads either. They were so young. I can't imagine what they have had to go through. So it's a lot to process in this case. I feel for everyone that is involved. To think that there have been no major updates in 5 years is just heartbreaking. Why isn't Joanna and Sharice's case being prioritized if law enforcement believed that foul play is involved because of evidence they received in the beginning? But then there's not enough evidence to move forward in the case. Investigators reportedly searched the home and found nothing. I can only hope that Joanna and Sharice's family get the closure they deserve, especially Joanna's children. I can't imagine the complicated situation they are in. Still so many unanswered questions. I see the turmoil and emotions in comments left by family members and the children I have read when researching for this video. Family and loved ones seem torn. It's just heartbreaking. I'm praying for this family's peace of mind. I can't imagine the pain and tremendous hurt they are feeling. I pray for everyone who is involved. I'm praying that Joanna and Shariece can be found one day. Please, if you have any information on the whereabouts of Joanna and Shariece Clark, who were last seen on February 4th, 2017 in the Cherry Hill area of Baltimore, Maryland, please contact local authorities. These age progression photos show what Joanna and Shariece may look like now. Joanna's birthday just passed on August 10th, so she would have been 39 and Shariece would be 20 years old. Help bring closure to this family. Also, if you or anyone you know are going through a domestic situation that is dangerous, please get out as soon as you can. I know it's easier said than done, and I'm praying for your strength and that resources can be made available to you. Contact someone you can trust, friends or family, a community advocate, the authorities, or the hotline for these types of situations. All right, fam, that's it for this episode of the Baltimore Way. This was a heavy one. Thank you all so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe. This is your girl, Mrs. Tony 2 Times, and I'm out.